In 2014, then Ohio Governor John Kasich signed an executive order creating a task force. The goal, strengthening relationships between communities and those who vow to protect and serve.
A year later, the task force evolved into a board given the job to oversee the implementation of newly drawn up regulations. But how many departments are actually following through?
The answer, at least in the Ohio Valley, not many. More now in a News 9 special assignment.
For us, it's to A, lead by example, and B, to show our community that we are trying to stay ahead of the game.
The Wintersville Police Department is certified, but it's in the vast minority in the Ohio Valley. Out of 75 law enforcement agencies in the Ohio counties that make up the region, only 13 can boast a certificate of completion. Joining Wintersville, the sheriff's offices in Belmont, Harrison, Carroll, Tuscarawas, and Guernsey counties, along with East Palestine, Janaden-Hutton, Sugar Creek, Bolivar, Port Washington, Muskingum Watershed, and Cambridge police departments. Tom Vaughn was Millersburg's police chief for 29 years and works with the Ohio Collaborative.
To establish a baseline to assist agencies in having their policies reviewed by an independent outside entity to make sure that they meet base standards. The Collaborative Board establishes those standards and bullet points that you have to meet.
So what are those baseline requirements? They're broken up into three groupings. Group 1 deals with use of force, recruitment, and hiring, namely hiring and encouraging people of color to apply for jobs. Group 2 with community engagement, especially communities of color, and Group 3 with bias-free policing.
There's policies that you should have in place, and most agencies do have in place. It's just to check that you're following your own policies, essentially.
That was the case with Wintersville. Chief Art Fowler says they already had the required policies in place, which gave them a leg up in getting certified.
I had a couple peer-to-peers with Tom Vaughn from the Collaborative who came down and assisted me in getting the paperwork in order.
Among the more than 60 area departments not certified, the Steubenville Police Department, one that's taken criticism in the past for a lack of diversity. City Manager Jim Mavromatis says it takes time, money, and manpower.
I do think it's a positive thing, very much so. The only thing I would wish that the government, the state, would attach funding to go along with that, because training costs money, and this is what a lot of departments don't have.
In the meantime, Mavromatis says the city is working with the Steubenville NAACP and its president, Michael McIntyre, to follow through with the Collaborative's goal to have police departments reflect the communities they serve.
Do you believe that local police departments are doing an overall good job with having a diverse staff?
I would assume you mean, are there many black officers on the beat in the Ohio Valley? The answer would be no.
McIntyre describes certification as a step in the right direction, but only a step.
Obviously, is a great starting point. My concern is that starting point is always there. It's always a starting point. It's always, quote unquote, not mandatory or not an agenda that you look for to be enforced forcefully.
A step Steubenville plans to take, but the pandemic is just one obstacle. Mavromatis says funding for any required training will likely be scarce, but that in this day and age, relationships between the people and their protectors cannot afford to get more strained.
Look at the tensions that are here between citizens and law enforcement. This has probably been the most contentious that I've ever seen in my career. So all those are facets that work into this. I would love to have more minority officers for what we deal with here. But again, recruiting is part of it, but when it comes down to the final end, you can't make people want to be a policeman.
It's very important if you want to have the community trust you. It's very important if you want to have an acknowledgement of how a different culture may be in a certain area of your community.
It is important to note certification is not mandatory, at least not yet. The state legislature would have to take action there. For more on the Collaborative and what certification really means, you can head to our website, WTOV9.com.